Oh, we're streaming. I forgot to turn all my lights on. We're streaming. And I forgot to prepare anything at all. Anything at all. Not anything. I prepared some stuff. You know what I haven't done in a long time? I haven't played any songs recently. That sounds nice. What do I even want to play? I feel like I haven't picked up my guitar in like years. That's what it feels like. It feels like I haven't picked up my guitar in years. Okay, we're streaming. It's not going to be a TikTok stream today. Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? Goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Her beauty in the moonlight overthrew ya. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne and cut your hair, and from her lips she drew a hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Your faith was strong. Nope. You say I took the name in vain, and I don't even know the name. And if I did, well, really, what's it to ya? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken. Hallelujah. Tried my best, it wasn't enough. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool ya. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hey, Compton. Good to see you, bud. Excuse me. Good to see you, bud. I chose Canadian Communist over Midwestern Marx at this moment. Oh, he also went live? Good for him, bud. Good for him. One of these days, I hope that he and I intersect. I hope that happens. I hope I get the opportunity to talk to Eddie, and I hope I have the opportunity to, I don't know, offer my services, and maybe we could do some stuff together. I think that I'm a bit too small, frankly, and I also think he's got a lot going on. He doesn't need someone like me coming on in. Like, I think that all I could probably offer is exactly this, would just be music, right? That I could play some music. Outside of that, I think that Eddie's and the crew that he's got a pretty good crew over there, and so it would be really great if I could somehow end up talking to them or being part of that. But that's all fantasy, mystery kind of stuff. They've got their own game going on, and do you know, Compton, if they stream regularly? Because I have been thinking about getting more specific about when I start doing this. You know, like, is it useful to be streaming against these guys and to be fighting against these guys? I don't know if it's that useful. And if it's going to mean that, like if Midwestern Marks is going to be streaming and it's going to mean that I basically get no viewership because everybody's going to go watch them. Yeah. That's the thing that I've noticed with them, is that it seems inconsistent. It seems inconsistent. Like, I don't know what their schedule is. Rose, a pleasure to see you. A pleasure to see you, Rose. I think I'm just gonna today, honestly, guys. Today I feel like I'm gonna play some music. I'm gonna chill out a little bit. We're gonna talk about the billionaires lost at the bottom of the ocean, right? I love the memes that have come up about it. I think one of my favorites is this one. Yeah. You make fun of billionaires even when they're at the bottom of the ocean? I make fun of billionaires especially when they're at the bottom of the ocean. These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt, and nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry. I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies. They cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we made the world a better place. I wish my ma was here. Oh, Compton, do you not know the story? Do you not know the story? Tourist submarine Titan goes missing on way to the Titanic wreck. So the story is that a small group, 5 rich guys, I don't know if they're billionaires or not. Like, I don't know their names or anything. 5 rich guys, they spent $250,000 each to get into a tube. Here it is. This is the tube, right? The tube that they get into. There it is, right? $250,000 a seat. That's right, Mr. Moon. Good to see you, bud. So they can all go down to go see the Titanic. And about 2/3 of the way down, they lose contact. If you do the math on this, right? If you do the math on this, it means that chances are good the thing imploded. Chances are good the thing imploded. And one of the no, the water is safe. Send more billionaires. Yeah. There was a meme I had. Where is it? Basically, yeah. Here we go. An employee for the company that made the Titanic submersible was fired after doubting its ability to go to extreme depths. He discovered the window was only certified to go 1,300 meters, despite their plans to go 4,000 meters. OceanGate didn't want to pay. Yeah, so looks to me, right? Looks to me like these guys were victims of capitalism. That the people who were making the thing were like, we don't need to make this so it works. We just need to make it so that we can convince some billionaires to give us money. And so, yeah, there's your capitalist innovation right there, looking to see. Absolutely. There's your capitalist innovation right there. Just, yeah, there is sort of... the thing that I find myself saying is, these are the guys that are supposed to be getting us into Mars. These are the guys that are getting us to Mars, right? This is how we're getting to Mars, right? We're all going to get to Mars this way. For sure that's going to happen, right? So, like, and of course people are quick to point out that all of this hubbub is going on. Well, meanwhile, like literally the day before, a boat carrying 750 migrants capsized in the Mediterranean, right? Does this have a picture of that boat? There's a great picture of that boat that I've seen around. But like nobody gives a crap about this, right? Nobody gives a crap about this. Everybody's just like, oh my goodness, the billionaires in the tube, the billionaires in the tube, who spent $250,000 each, right? They spent like a total, like. They could have done anything else. They could have done anything else. I always daydream about covering the rich bomb shelter exits with concrete, but yep, you take what you can get. You take what you can get, Cotton. You take what you can get. That's how it is these days. That's how it is these days. I was just a little boy when my mom and dad divorced. Through my tantrums, cried my tears, I'd keep their vows by force. Now that I'm an older man, I see it had to be this way. My love for them, it keeps on growing each and every day. Time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though they're not the people I expected they would be, well, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. 10 years, me and my wife, we traveled round the globe. Sacred vows and shared regrets, they filled our lives with hope. Then one day she tells me that a man is not for her. Well, those 10 years are a memory now, but my love for her still stirs. And time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though she's not the person I expected she would be, well, I love her all the same. I just want her to be free. My love had a little girl, a scrappy tomboy type. I watched her blossom like a flower, but she felt not quite right. Then one day she tells me she's a young man, not a girl. Well, I picked her up and held her close and sent my son into the world. And time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though he's not the person I expected he would be, well, I love him all the same. I just want him to be free. And though they're not the people I expected they would be, well, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. Tablet Talks, good to see you. The Dojo, good to see you. Yeah, they should have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Exactly, Radio. Like, exactly. Right? If I were a billionaire stuck at the bottom of the ocean, I would simply pull myself up by my bootstraps. Come on. Just bootstrap your way up. Right? Once again, we point out, it's capitalist innovation that caused this whole situation in the first place, right? Right? Are you happy about the lost souls on board? Yeah, fuck these people. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, if you are putting yourself in a rocket to go to space, or if you were putting yourself in a tube to go to the bottom of the ocean, you should take that money and give it to the poor. Like, if you're sitting there being like, yeah, I could go see the Titanic on the bottom of the ocean, take that money, give it to the poor. So, I am with the orcas. I'm with the orcas. I'm pro-orca. I actually think that the story is not that the capitalist failed, but that the orcas got it. The orcas took over. The killer whales came, destroyed the boat while it was on the way down. Why the hell not, eh? Why the hell not? Oh, I know, Milo. Oh, I know. I'm sitting here just talking to myself, playing music, right? And I'm not giving Milo treats. I know. What a catastrophe. What a catastrophe. Yeah, those billionaires don't need rescue or welfare. They just need to work harder and save themselves. If they don't want to work hard, then they deserve it. That's right. That's right. It's their fault for not vetting, right? They put their trust in here, right? I mean, like, from a basic sort of human standpoint, you are just like, okay, like, that it's lame. It's like, it's shitty that these guys died, but like, I don't know. I just am to a point now where, like, oh, so they fucked around and they found out. Like, there is no credible, like, there are no credible institutions anymore. That if you, hey Snake, how you doing, bud? If you are sitting there saying, oh yeah, we just gotta trust them, then you're done. Like, there is no such thing as a credible institution anymore. It doesn't exist, right? They are not doing safety measures. They are not making sure everything is fine. They are not making sure. Like, the real lesson, okay? The real lesson. If we want to step outside the, like, haha, billionaires died, and we actually want to, oh no! Disaster. Oh no! Maybe the real lesson is that I should set up my my system so it doesn't fall apart if something blows over. Where'd the... Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Oh! A disaster. A disaster, to be sure. Christman moment. This Christman moment has been brought to you by the Canadian Commie. Yeah, I've got my my thing. I'm such a huge professional that I've got my webcam set up on a book. And that book decided to just go. And it was funny because I was watching it go over, and I was like, maybe I should do something about that. And I thought, nah. These guys are idiots for going on this sub. Did you see the video of them showcasing their 2005 Logitech controller that controlled the thing? Look, I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, as I was saying, right? I was talking about trust before my own system betrayed me. Like, you can't trust anybody anymore. Like, you literally can't, right? You literally can't. You can't get into, you can't trust any equipment, you can't trust any system, you can't trust any institution, you can't. If you're sitting there going, crossing those fingers, saying, oh boy, I hope they did the work, I hope they looked into this, I hope, the answer is no, they didn't. The answer is no, they didn't. Like, they obviously did not test this. We literally have a story like this. An employee for the company that made the submersible was fired after doubting its ability to go to extreme depths. He discovered the window was only certified to go 1,300 meters, despite their plans to go 4,000 meters. Like, you're putting your life in these people's hands, and these billionaires just, they fucked around and they found out. Simple as that. Simple as that. Matt Christman was going on a huge, poignant rant once, and, well, he does a lot of huge, poignant rants, and his chair just fell apart in the middle of it. This is your moment, John. Nah. I appreciate the comparison to, Matt Christman, though. I feel like me and Matt, every time I listen to Matt Christman, I'm like, Matt Christman, you're my spirit animal. You're my spirit animal, bud. He's sometimes I listen, like, it's very, very rare for me to listen to somebody and hear somebody say something from a perspective that is actually unique and interesting. And Matt Christman does that with a certain degree of regularity. So I really value him for that. I really value him for that. Milo, what are you whining about, dude? Jone, good to see you again, bud. This reminds me of old bosses who would be careless with things they just assume would work. Oh, are you kidding me? Like, guys. So, I'm going to tell a personal story. Whoa. Yeah, I mean, Chrisman comes from a theological background. Right? Again, like, I feel like he and I actually have a lot of similarity. We're both from small town, rural places. We moved to cities. We both have, like, a theological backing and a background. Like, that's why I say, like, I feel, somewhat connected to him for those sorts of things. Nut Milk Band, long time no see. Hope you're doing well too, bud. We're just playing with Milo, because Milo's been whining at us. Yes, he has been. Like, a big problem with wealth, a big problem with money, is that once you attain a certain level of wealth, once you attain a certain level of money, you genuinely actually do think that you can solve every problem by throwing money at it. Like, I've seen this happen in my life, where I feel pretty safe telling this story now because I think all parties have resolved. So, for my establishment that I work in, the capitalist establishment that I work in, new ownership came in and bought the place, right? Ugh. And one of the new owners, who is no longer with the company because of this story, thought that the best thing to do was to take this family restaurant, which is obviously what it is, it's a family restaurant, like a cafe, family restaurant kind of thing, and try to turn it into a wine bar. Well, the transit only goes to the neighborhood until 7 o'clock. Which begs the question, how do you even get to the establishment? And so the whole concept of the wine bar imploded essentially the moment they tried it, because nobody showed up, because nobody could get there. And nobody was going to drive to a wine bar to drink wine and then drive home, right? Nobody was going to do that. And so this ill-conceived idea and this ill-conceived plan was put into effect. And it wasn't like they pitched it. It wasn't like they talked to us and were like, what do you guys think of doing a wine bar here? And then, because if they had asked me, I would have been like, transit stops at 7. Where's your customers? Simple as that. Real basic and straightforward stuff. No, they didn't have that conversation. Instead, they bought like $100,000 worth of wine and redid the entire establishment to display all this wine and put the wine in the place and set up the place to be a wine bar. Like, rich people are not very smart. And I think the problem is that we live in a society that says that if you're rich, you are smart. Instead of, if you're rich, you're obviously lucky. Like, that's pretty much the cut and dry reality, is that you're pretty lucky if you get rich. That, like, everybody's kind of got a scheme going on, and sometimes the scheme hits the zeitgeist and sometimes it doesn't. Simple as that. Right? But if you're going to walk forward thinking that you've got a good idea without any idea of like, what could go wrong, well, you're going to lose a bunch of money. And this ultimately leads to the guys whose idea it was getting pushed out of the company, because everybody was like, oh, geez, you just lost this bunch of money, dude. for like fuck all. And all they had to do, this is my favorite part of the whole story, all they had to do is come and talk to me. That's all they had to do. They had to look at me and say, hey, John, what do you think about a wine bar here? And I've been like, terrible idea. You're going to lose a lot of money. And I was right. Hey, John, how you feeling? I'm feeling good, Bread Bunny. I'm feeling good. I should let you guys know right now, I'm not going to be able to do a show tomorrow because I'm going to a dentist. I've got a dentist appointment right when I'm doing this, supposed to be doing the stream. I'm going to be having a hole drilled into my head, so that's going to be fun. Wish me luck. The dentist is like, it could be a root canal, big question mark. So I'm hoping to avoid that because I don't want to spend a few $1,000s. If she looks at me and says she's got to do a root canal, I might actually tell her to just pull the tooth. It's the one right in the back, so I'm just like, just pull it. Just get rid of that. Americans drink and drive so casually, sadly. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason for it. Like, there's a reason for it. First of all, there is no public transit in America. But second of all, like, have you noticed that everyone's sad all the time? Have you noticed that depressive symptoms in U.S. 8th, 10th, and 12th graders have skyrocketed through the roof? Have you noticed that there is a mental health crisis that is more or less being completely ignored? Have you noticed? I've noticed. Have you noticed? Have you noticed? Everything is going to shit. Have you noticed? Have you noticed? We're not doing a thing about it. Yeah, there we go. I'm making up little ditties about the collapse. Is pulling the tooth cheaper than the root canal? Yeah. Like, I could pull my tooth if I really wanted to. Like, if it was like life or death, I could definitely pull my tooth. Pulling a tooth is cheaper than a root canal for sure. A root canal is like a whole procedure. It's amongst the most expensive procedures. Whereas pulling a tooth, like, anybody could pull a tooth. You could pull a tooth. Like, that's my one of my favorite things is, like, a dentist will really try to convince you that pulling a tooth is like this big procedure, but it's like literally, that's what it is. Can you pull a wisdom tooth? I've had my wisdom teeth removed, and I would say that for me, 3 content. 3 of the wisdom teeth I could have pulled myself. But one of them had to get more specific. He had to break it apart and really get it and clean it out and do all that kind of stuff, right? But I had 3 wisdom teeth removed. I had my wisdom teeth removed because I was on a plan with my university, and I was graduating, and so that plan was going to get up. And so I just thought to myself, you know what? I think people say that you got to get these pulled out. Here's a good time to pull these out. And I spent 3 days just like in my room on like some kind of Tylenol 3 painkiller thing in like a fugue state. Yeah, it's like this kind of data that we're looking at right in front of us. I wanted to save this one because I really like. Come on, you know, like I just think that there's so much denialism going on today. Like so many people are just deciding to cover their ears and just go and close their eyes and just go la 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 la, and then you just see stuff like this where you're just like, nah, bro, like you're in a crisis, like you're in a major crisis, and perhaps people denying that there is a crisis is in fact making that crisis worse. Hey Leon, how you doing, bud? Snatch it like a paper towel, crack it like a whip. Like, maybe we should just admit, like, I really do think that just like if people just acknowledge the reality of the situation. But like half of the political discourse now, the entire conservative side of the argument, like conservatives and Republicans across the entire spectrum are just living in this total state of denial that there is a problem in the first place. And that alone is making things so much worse. Like so much worse for everybody, right? For everybody. And can we please, for the love of God, get people acknowledging that reality exists? John, have you read anything by Umair Haq? Been reading his articles lately, learning a few people to grasp how insane this world is. I have not heard this name. Let's take a look. Umair. I accidentally hit. Here we go. The director of the Havas Media Lab has previously blogged in the Harvard Business Review. Oh, author of the new book, The New Capitalist Manifesto. Building a disruptively better business. I already love this guy. Yeah, here we go. He's one of the world's leading thinkers. A member of the Thinkers 50. Here we go. Yeah, I already love this guy because he's making capitalist manifestos. Betterness, economics for humans. Here we go. What's an article that this guy's writing? The age of extinction is here. Some of us just don't know it yet. Oh well, that's delightful. That's delightful. Yeah, Britain's in a doom loop. If it feels like the world is going crazy, and so are you, read this. The end of the human age. All right. What America's next presidential election will really be like? Why our civilization is in a climate crisis? Britain's imploding and nobody cares. The age of collective delusion. There we go. That's nice. The age of extinction versus a new enlightenment. Why America is such a broken country and its malaise is spreading. I bet anything, though. I bet anything this guy is like... So he is anti-capitalist because he doesn't sound anti-capitalist, but like I bet anything, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, that I bet I would put money on the table to say that this guy is probably one of those guys that is exceptionally good at diagnosing the problem, right? That the problem is this, and here's the thing, and he's like accepting all of the realities and all that, but when it comes time to come up with a solution, his solutions are probably like, and that's why we need to do more capitalism, right? Like the classic and I'm happy to be wrong about this, but it's so common now. It's so common to see people who are like, we've been taken over by a world government that the elites are taking over, and they're chasing everybody into poverty, and they're stealing all the land, and they're taking over the government. And so what we need to do is get rid of the government and sell ourselves to capitalists. You know. Hey John, how far through our descent into fascism do you think we'll get before minorities should obviously be looking for an escape? How far would it have to go before you personally wanted out? Like, if I were living in a red state right now, as any minority whatsoever, I would be leaving. Now. I would already be leaving. Like, I would have already been leaving with Donald Trump's election. That, like, Donald Trump basically was like, Muslims are bad, and we're gonna ban Muslims, we're gonna do a Muslim ban, we're banning Muslims. And if I'm standing there as a Muslim, being like, they're banning Muslims, interesting. They're literally saying out loud in public, on television, in public spaces, that they're banning Muslims. Yeah, bye. Like, leave all the red states. Get out of Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, get out, just get out. Like, get the fuck out. If I'm living in Florida with DeSantis, bye. Get out. Like, get out. And yeah, trans people are in that route too. Like the insanity, the hysteria. Like, I would say that the hatred against minority groups has always been sort of a persistent thrum, and that it is now sort of heightening. But what's going on with trans people is different. It is a hysteria. It is like a heightened, like, detach yourself from any kind of rational, reasonable way of thinking about this at all. I think there's a lot of fascination. I think people are fascinated by trans people. That hearing about a trans person and then delving into the conversation about trans people is fascinating for people. I think there's a fascination that's gone on, and that fascination, oh yeah, Conton, I saw right-wingers try to argue that being called cisgender is hate speech. Yeah, Elon Musk straight out said that he'll ban people for using that language on his platform. Twitter, right? That if you use cis and cisgender, if you use these things on Twitter, they ban you now. Like, that's what Elon Musk is saying anyway. So, we're all having a normal one, right? We're all having a normal one. Yeah, here, hold on. I've got some of this in the memes. Here, hold on. What do we got? Yeah, this is an Elon Musk tweet, right? Repeated targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing accounts to receive, at minimum, temporary suspensions. The words cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. That's Elon Musk himself. That's the man, right? Like, I also want to get this one, because... So, if I am... the thesis of the article, Why Do We Have a Climate Crisis, is that rich people are psycho. Oh yeah, he writes a lot about fascism. Okay, sounds cool. Sounds cool. I'll look into this guy. Hey, Demand Better, how you doing, bud? So, if I'm a minority group, if I'm black, Indian, Latino, and I'm living in the deep south, right? I'm leaving. Like, unless you're rich, like, unless you have money, so unless you're a Gusano, right? Get out. Get out faster. Quicker. Leave sooner. Right? Yeah, where would trans people even go? Yeah. Like, it is very much looking as though the society is taking a pretty hard pivot towards pretty oblique fascism. Like, and I don't think we can pretend anymore. Like, I don't think we can pretend anymore. There's sort of this crossing of the fingers and sort of going like, oh please, oh please. I think people are hoping they can negotiate their way out of it. I don't think we will. I think we're going to do it. I think that I've seen enough. that if you go into online spaces and try to talk about how we train Nazis and how we are training Nazi groups, you get banned, right? So the signs are all there. Like we are descending in that direction without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, trans people are already fleeing Florida. Some are fleeing to the red states in general. Fascism will come into power, and the trans genocide will be the first thing they finish. Yeah. Many human rights organizations have said that the situation is very dangerous for trans people, and others say that we're in the final stage of a genocide against trans people. Stage 10 or 11. Yep. Yeah. And they don't stop there, right? Like, that's the thing that's so, like, despicable about the whole thing. This is just them getting started. This is just them getting started. Like, I really do think that one of the things that is happened is that people can't imagine. Like, they don't want to imagine that there are huge groups in the society that are willing to be this despicable. I just think that there's a lot of people in the society who still want to cling on to the idea that these people will listen to reason and they won't be that bad. Like maybe they've got this position, but like they're never gonna do anything really serious. Yeah, they are. Like they are, and it's just that you have like a lot of sort of weak-willed liberals who think that everybody else is a weak-willed liberal too, when the truth is that these conservatives are not weak-willed liberals. They're strong-willed conservatives and strong-willed fascists, and these weak-willed liberals are, you know, mainly fascist in their worldview. They just are so weak and cowardly that they're not really willing to enact any of it. Bread Bunny says, I'm trans. Every day I worry more when I will have to flee Alberta with my partner. Well, it's, again, it sort of depends on where you are, you know, Bread Bunny. Like, if you're in a blue state, like if you're in, I don't know where you are. So if you're in like a major city, right? Like if you're in New York or if you're in Los Angeles or if you're in a blue state, like a blue state, not like an in-between sort of state, but a blue state, then it's going to be different. It is going to be different. Right? Like I'm very, very specific when I'm talking about like oh yeah, it's different in Canada. It is different in Canada that like Polyev is not a fascist. That certainly there are fascist elements, but like I'm not really hearing him say, like, we're not seeing a trans purge. Like this is the big thing, is that, like, I say it over and over and over again, right? That there's no such thing as a secret genocide. Like, there's no such thing as just like an accidental, incidental oopsie-doo. Like, what they're doing in the United States, they're being very vocal about, and it's very upfront. It's right in your face. They're saying it in speeches. They're organizing on these principles. They're talking about it. Right, like that's the thing. I think that you got, if you're in this heightened state, then I think you gotta I'm gonna try to bring you down because you're in Canada. Nobody in the Conservative Party, nobody serious in the Conservative Party is standing up and saying speeches about how we got to get rid of trans people. That just doesn't exist. So, are there elements within the party? Sure. But are there elected people? Are there people actually in positions of power and authority that are talking that way? No. And in fact, not that long ago, there was an MP by the name of Derek Sloan, if you'll remember, who was actually ejected and ousted from the party for this kind of thing. So the Conservatives are still like they're far right. They're corporate owned. They are libertarian in their worldview mainly, but the anti-trans hysteria has not infected that party to the degree that it has happened in the United States. Could it? Sure. Could it? Sure. You can see the PPC for that. That if you want to take a look at the guy that's actually talking that game, it is that guy's name. I forget that guy's name. The PPC guy. Why am I forgetting his name? Anyway, that guy is actually saying things about this issue, right? And so I think in order to just sort of alleviate some tension from you, it's scary. It's a scary moment. Yeah, exactly. Grinning. Like, Florida is a different animal. Those people want trans blood. Yeah, it turns out that if you load your state with a bunch of Nazis, gusanos, and rich people, that you have a psychotic state. Who knew? Who knew that would happen? One of the most unequal states in the Union, like just a total disaster. When the waters come up and cleanse it, there's going to be an aspect of the society that's going to be like God's judgment upon Florida, right? Like I find the trans craze to be extremely, as like an outsider, as somebody who is like literally the definition of an outsider, but I still consider myself an ally of, like, you guys know me, my position is very simple. You are allowed to do with your body and your essence and your being whatever you want. You are the expert of yourself. There's literally no one in reality who has more authority on what is going on with you than you. No one. No one is allowed to tell you what you think. No one is allowed to tell you what you can do to yourself. No one is allowed to tell you what you can, what job you can have. No one's allowed to tell you any of that kind of stuff. You are the expert of you, and that's it. And so what's going on with all of this anti-trans rhetoric and all this kind of stuff? It's insanity. Like, it is insanity. Like, who cares? Like, first of all, there's that element. Like, I completely understand the guy that is going, that's a bit, what? But isn't a boy? And they're born with male genitalia, and I don't understand. I'm a very confused person, and this frustrates me, because I'm confused by things I don't understand, and being confused makes me upset. This is angry, and I'm going to remain a bigot to trans people, I will. Harumph, I say, harumph. You know, like, that's typical kind of dumb bullshit stuff. It's this politicization of it that instead of leaving it on that level of just like, trans people sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me, right? It's fine, right? Like, sounds like my mother, right? Like that, like, that's one thing. And I got to be really straightforward with you guys, and I know I'm going to catch a little bit of heat from this, but please understand that I'm saying this with love in my heart. You kind of have to expect that of humans, right? Like, you kind of have to expect that, what? This idea that is outside of the ideas that's prevalent in the society? Heresy! You have to expect that kind of thing, right? Like humans are dumb. We don't like ideas. We don't like thinking. We don't like any of that. Like, we want things to be similar. A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. And when a boy and a girl get together, they get married and have a baby. Under God. Right? And, like, the gay thing was hard enough for these people. It was hard enough that they were like, so you're a man, but you want to have sex with men. Hold on. Walk me through it. You are a man. Yes, correct. I'm a man. A man. Correct. Yes. And you, a man, yes, want to have sex with other men. Yes, that's correct. Well, I think Jesus would be upset with this. He's going to send you to hell for sure for wanting to have sexual relationships consensually with another man. That's something that Jesus would definitely have a problem with, I think. Took us a moment to be like, would he though? Like, would Jesus have a problem with that though? Really? Would he? And so finally people got through it. And now it's the trans issue. And I just think people they just can't get through it. It's too much. It's too big. Because fundamentally I think that all that really was asked of straight people in the end of it, in the gay question, was that they actually ask themselves seriously, am I gay? That they look at another man or another woman and they say, nah, or maybe yeah, right? A little. Not that one, but that one, right? And so there's a little bit of, but that was all that was asked of them, right? The trans question is like a whole other ball of wax. It's like this whole other thing. You're like asking the society to actually walk through like a fire of like, what is a man? What is a woman? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? And to like walk through a cleansing fire that like burns away all of the societal bullshit, so that you get to the other side of it being like, no, I am a man. And it's like you are asking people to like go on like an existential journey of their own personal self-discovery. And most people are cowards about that. Like a guy like Matt Walsh is an enormous coward. He's an enormous coward. He doesn't want to walk through the fire. He doesn't want to have all this cleansed. He wants to look at his Bible and be like, men are men. And men say what men say, and then Jesus gives the manliness. And that's it. That's all they want. And this confusion is too much for them. It's too much. And so instead of going inwardly, they're just projecting outwardly. Greg Wick Sorefleet? Is this John Wick? I don't think I've seen you around in a while, bud. How you doing? My identical twin, biological brother, is a trans woman. I just know it's going to get me in trouble one day when we're out in the wild. I am a very big guy, but it's still worry. Yeah, like, and it's so dumb. Like, that's the part of it that kills me the most. It's like the most, like, who gives a shit thing ever. Like, oh no. Like, as far as any straight man and straight woman should be concerned, it is like a man wanting to put on a dress. Like, I understand that it's much deeper than that. I understand that there's a lot more going on than that. But as far as the straight person is concerned, it is literally you looking at a person that you conceive of as a man, but they're wearing a dress. That's the interaction, right? And so, like, who gives a shit at all? Like, who gives a shit at all? Like, that's my big thing. Like, put a rainbow in the sky and write, who gives a shit? Like, I understand that you might look at that and go, that's a strange appearance. That is not something that I would like to do for my own life, and I am confused by why a person would want to do that in this world. Something must be going on. Oh well, off I go living my normal life. But now they're getting together in groups and like writing legislation about it. Like, that's wild. That's wild, dude. That like they're so dedicated. Like, I do not want to see a man in a dress. A man in a dress offends me so that I'm going to base my entire political identity on it. I will vote. I will go into a booth and I will vote for the leader of my country based on the idea that I am offended by a man in a dress. It's insane. Like, it's insane. You're literally, your society is collapsing. Your society is collapsing into a state of poverty and fascism. Fentanyl crisis spreading across the land. prosperity being extracted out of the society and shipped elsewhere, wealth inequality spiking, billionaires blowing themselves up in the bottom of the ocean, shooting themselves up into space, obvious disparity wherever you look. I'm gonna make sure that no man can put on a dress in front of kids. That's what offends me most about today's degenerate country, is that the man is putting on a dress and walking in front of children and reading them storybooks. This, to me, is an affront to Jesus Christ himself. But if Jesus Christ was here today, he would be saying no trans people should be reading children's books to children. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, like, for real, it seems to me that somebody needs to sit these people down and just be like, why is this so important to you? Why is this so important to you? Like, that's the part of it that I think is the most interesting. It's not that they have those opinions, right? Like I sort of expect people to have those kinds of opinions, right? Like, and my expectation is such that it's not even offensive to me. I'm like, yeah, I expect there to be like brain dead people like this. Like, I expect this. But it's that this has been prioritized to the highest level. That this opinion matters more than any other opinion. There's this really great clip of Donald Trump doing one of his speeches, and he's kind of tired. You could tell he's up there, and he's like, and he's talking about his speeches, and he's going, and we need to make sure that we take care of. We've got to. There's trans people in the society, and it's very scary for people. And he gets a standing ovation, and he says it basically like that. He's just like, and we've just got to make sure that we do something about the trans people. And people stand up and start clapping, and then he goes, "Wow, people really care about that. Yeah, people really care about that. Wow, interesting, right?" Because he's just saying whatever they want to hear. That's all he's doing. Like, to learn about how trans kids are under attack in Canada, look up changes to Policy 713 in New Brunswick. Pretty bad. Good tip there, Adam. India recognizes men, women, and hijras. The U.S. is binary in its gender recognition. Culture has to accommodate the human experience, not the other way around. But yeah. Yeah, even if one did see it as a man wanting to wear a dress, I thought conservatives supported individual liberty. Yeah. Turns out conservatives are hysterically hypocritical. Who knew? Who knew that conservatives were hysterically hypocritical? Oh, literally everybody. Like, literally everybody knows this. I would defend her at all costs. That's beautiful. 2,000 years of strict gender roles enforced by Christianity, despite trans people existing long before Christianity, yeah. My favorite conversation that's been going on in the modern era is, where did all these trans people come from? It's gotta be the internet. Trans indoctrination! No, bro, we just stopped killing them. Like, we stopped beating the shit out of them for a second. We stopped beating the shit out of them for a moment, and then they're able to stand up and say, I'm trans. And then we didn't beat the shit out of them. And in fact, many of us have been like, oh, okay, cool. What's that all about? Let's see what that's all about. Okay. And then it has sort of cascaded and intersected with a lot of interesting ideas and a lot of interesting stuff. But I don't think anybody expected it to become this hysterical fascination. And that's absolutely what it is. It's a hysterical fascination that is non-rational. Like, it is non-rational. It is coming out of a place of deep fear and deep confusion, and people don't want to accept that maybe the universe is a little bit more complex than they thought it was, right? They wanted to believe if you believe in a binary worldview, then the concept of a trans person is very difficult to grab a hold. The CIA is using bots to bully these simple and rural folk on the issue until they have enough trauma and triggers on the subject. They can be easily directed into a manic hysteria. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by this. Like, it definitely is something that is, like, being rammed into people's faces. And I think it could be as simple as just, like, algorithmic interaction, right? That people are, like, fascinated by it, so they click on it, and then they click on it until finally they find the thing that's not only fascinating but also enraging, and then that builds into a whole fervor of its own, until finally people are like, when they think trans person, they think this one bad trans person, right? Just the same way that Bill Clinton used, like, welfare queens, right, as this idea in order to destroy and dismantle the welfare system. Yeah, I'm getting more worried about the looks I get too. Yeah, oh yeah, I suspect so. John, your redneck voice has notes of Bill Cosby. That's okay. I wasn't trying to do Bill Cosby, but if it happens, such is life. You know, you get the pudding pop and you put it with the tune. Right? It's fine. Bill Cosby, man. What a fucking bummer that was. Straight up. I loved Bill Cosby when I was growing up. I did. I looked up to Bill Cosby. Like, Bill Cosby, what a guy. And then to find out that he's, like, systematically raping women, you're just like, dude, what a bummer. Like, please don't. Like, please don't. It offends them because trans people are supposed to be at the bottom of the social ladder, and now conservatives aren't allowed to feel superior to anyone. If trans people are supposed to be equal, then who am I supposed to be better than? This is a hierarchy after all, and I am supposed to be here. And now you're telling me that it's like this and that I'm here? I don't like that. Yeah, it's like so babyish, right? Like it is. Like, just get over yourself, dude. Like, you're gonna die just like the rest of us, right? Like it's I don't get this whole, like, we're supposed to think you're better because you're white and male. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Conservatives want to shove trans people into shadows like they did with gay people. The trans thing is being shoved down their throats because they have to acknowledge that they exist. Yeah. I do think I'll make this commentary, and here we go. Here I go wandering into the weeds, okay? I do think that the trans people and the trans agenda, I'm using quotes because I don't really believe that there is such a thing, but I do think that corporations, especially a corporation like Disney, does use trans people and trans rights cynically. I think that it is being used cynically as a way to sell products. I think that that's essentially what, and Disney is the one to use because they're the biggest, right? So they're the one to use. I think that they are putting a lot of this diversity culture and a lot of that kind of stuff into the discourse specifically in order to inflame the discourse and then put things into the narrative, right? Like that, and I think they've been doing that for a while. So, like, making the Little Mermaid black, like, they're doing that in order to create the reaction. They know that they're going to get this reaction, and they know that the people who are on their side, that are on the left of the spectrum, they know that those people are only going to comment on the reaction. They're not actually going to be willing to stand up and look at Disney and be like, you know what you're doing. Like, Disney knows what it's doing. It knows that it's poking a bear. It knows that it's poking a bear. And moreover, Disney is not presenting these diverse, like the diversity culture and the diversity kind of thing, in order to have people sympathize with the character. That the character is being put up as a sacrificial lamb in most cases. That if you're already on side, like if you're already an ally and you're already in that part and you're already there, then they know you're not going to have a problem with this, and you might even celebrate it. You might even be standing there being like, okay, cool, yay, right? But they know that they're going to get a backlash reaction. They know they're going to do that. And so instead of actually creating like a delicate story surrounding the issue of being trans or a minority of any sort, instead of trying to create that kind of story and that kind of narrative, they're just foisting these issues up as a sacrificial lamb in order to create controversy, in order to sell tickets. That's really what they're doing. Like, I take a look at the female Ghostbusters. Like, the female Ghostbusters was 100% this. That they made the female Ghostbusters, they knew it was going to create controversy. They knew how the society was going to respond to it. And they made a bunch of money because of it. Because a bunch of people went and saw that movie specifically to shit on it. Specifically to shit on it. And moreover, they also knew that they didn't need to make a good movie. Like, it was not a good movie. That's the big... Like, it was fun. Like, I watched it and I had a fun time. But one of the things I think that's really weird about what's going on in the culture in this regard is, like, it's weird that people care this much about something like the female Ghostbusters. Like, I understand that people, like, would be like, about it, but to care this much, to make this your identity, to make it part of who you are, is weird. It's weird. And I can't help but think that it's because we have like a moral vacuum going on, that because there are no more moral voices, we're trying to get our morality from something, and the thing that some people are using is like movies, like Marvel movies. So instead of having meaningful moral debates in churches, or meaningful moral debates in public sphere, in the public sphere, or in the political sphere, we're using movies, which is like the dumbest way of doing it, because these movies are being cynically generated by capitalists in order to extract wealth from us. Like, they don't care about building a culture. They don't care about any of that. C.R. Hugh, how you doing, bud? Getting rid of New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs would be a bonus to the Maritimes. Please take him out. New Brunswick actually has a competitive Green Party like PEI does. Could flip the balance. Trans people and rights are being used as yet another dividing dog whistle. Trans just don't statistically groom kids or harm them any more than their own parents do. Yeah. Like, that's just it. Like, you can find a trans person that has done a bad thing because they're also human. Like, that's the thing. But they don't want to admit that they're also human, right? So it was kind of woke of Amazon to make Galadriel a Nazi. I mean, Nazis are underrepresented as heroes in the U.S. media, or well, now there are heroes like Galadriel killing orcs who are a mistake. Yep. I refer, of course, to the Ukraine Nazis getting your money. Moral panic and dog whistle and amygdala marketing are terms of art when using controversy to create publicity or support. Yeah. Ben, so are you advocating for an increase in the importance of religion? Yeah, I think so. Like, I think that we are spiritually dead. I think that the death of our spiritual understanding, or of our collective understanding of ourselves, has opened up the door to a lot of grifters. I've talked about this a lot. I talked about this a lot yesterday, in fact, that there are two types of people in the discourse now. One is the well-meaning lunatic, so someone who does actually mean well and who is actually attempting to have some kind of conversation about the larger human spirit and the larger human collective, these sort of larger, what would be thought of as religious ideas, right? They are trying to have this, but they're a lunatic, right? But people are drawn to them because there's a vacuum, because everything's so spiritually dead now. And so somebody who's attempting to be spiritual as a lunatic is good enough. And then you have the actual grifters. And the actual grifters are more common, right? Like, and that's basically every church leader that exists in America right now. It is like a legitimate grifter, like your Pat Robertsons, your Joel Orsteins. Like these people are grifters, and they know they're grifters. They know they're running a grift. It's why they ally so tightly with Donald Trump, because game respects game, right? Game respects game. That they straight up are just like, oh shit, he's also a grifter. It's a secular grift that he's running. It's not a religious grift that he's running, but it's the same grift. Oh, great. We can be buddies. Game respects game. And as long as Donald Trump is willing to hold up a Bible and be like, these guys who have this Bible thing that I'm told is a good, important book, these guys are great, amongst the best, greatest, right? Like, as long as he's willing to do that, then perfect, right? Perfect. He's willing to play ball. And a lot of that is coming out of the fact that there is no such thing as a credible religious institution anymore. The religious institutions are either completely fraudulent or totally cowardly, that they literally exist as extractionary devices in order to extract wealth. The best you will ever get out of any religious organization anywhere is like, a lunch on Tuesdays for poor people to show up and get a sandwich, right? For which they're grateful, and so the thing kind of self-justifies. Meanwhile, we're buying yet another golden throne for a pedophile, right? Like, it's gotten pretty obvious that that we are a spiritually dead people, in that we don't actually have any outlet to discuss meaningful spiritual ideas. And the prevailing spiritual idea, or the prevailing ideas that exist in the society, are ideas of individualism, right? That it's not about creating a community or a collective or any of that kind of stuff. It's about you individualizing your individualism. That's what mindfulness is all about, this corporatization of religion, right? That religious ideologies and religious ideas all exist so that you can manifest yourself in your reality. It's you can create your own reality, and you can manifest your own reality around you. You just need to focus on what you need to do for yourself so that you can live your best life, right? It's about you and nothing else. It's not about community. It's not about love your neighbor as yourself. It's not about the environment you live in. It's not about love the Lord your God, right? It's not about any of that. It's about how do you manifest your best world for yourself. And that's the death of spirituality. Like, that's the death of the human spirit. So we live in a spiritually dead world. And I wish we didn't. I wish that we could have serious conversations about the nature of our existence. I wish that we could have serious conversations about the reality that we actually live in. I wish that we could actually have serious discussions about the nature. Like, we're all randomly generated beings, just randomly generated into this world. We have basic necessities, like we need to eat, we need to drink water, and we need to have shelter. If we don't have those things, we die. And for some reason, we've allowed a small group of psychopaths to withhold those things from us when those things exist in abundance. And that, to me, is like the nugget of the spiritual conversation that we're actually having. It is essentially, why are we giving away that which was given to us freely by the universe that created us? And simply asking those sorts of questions, it's not permitted, right? That's why the discourse needs to be taken over by frauds. That's why the discourse needs to be taken over by these individualists, is that if you actually start thinking about the universe and the world that you live in from any kind of genuine spiritual position, the first thing that you should be asking is, why isn't food free? It's the very first thing that anybody of any kind of ethical or moral or religious position should be asking. We throw away 40% of the food that we create. Why isn't food free? What's the point of this system if it's not going to make food free? What you're telling me that I need to justify my existence to a system that's withholding food instead of justifying my existence to the system that created me in the first place. That the system that created me in the first place actually does create enough food for all of us to eat freely from the earth itself, but we're going to permit a group of middlemen to stand in the way and withhold that from us unless we sell ourselves to them. No. Sounds like a crime against God. Sounds like a crime against creation itself, is what it sounds like. Sounds like the people that are involved in that process are demonic, are evil, and should be fought against tooth and nail. Like, we weren't created by capitalists. Capitalists didn't create us. They're not responsible for generating us. They're responsible for making our lives here more difficult, but by a lot. So you can't have these sort of conversations. The only conversation that you're allowed to have in the spiritual realm is a magic wizard is coming back at any moment. That's a big one. That's the most popular one. Like, that's what's so funny, Ben, is the most popular conversation is a wizard's coming back at any time. And the wizard wants you to think this way, right? Which is just utter nonsense, like the most nonsense way to actually discuss. And that's the number one discussion going on. And if it's not a wizard is coming back, the other one is you are the wizard. That's the other one. Like, you are the wizard and you need to manifest the wizardry for yourself. It's like no genuine conversation whatsoever about the nature of the system of capital. No genuine conversation about that at all. And like, if we were to actually become a spiritual people, it would destroy the system of capital very swiftly. But so it's very important for the system of capital to destroy spirituality. Very important. Like, you cannot think about the universe as a thing unto itself. You cannot think of that. That's got to be expunged from the system of thought. You are the only thing that matters. You are the only thing that matters. Anyway, I could continue talking about that, and I did for a long time yesterday. Bread Bunny, there is some of that, but the super fascist terrorists that CIA have figured out they can direct the social zeitgeist from class to social flame was just like Nazis did. Yeah. Like, I actually think that we, like, the CIA, we've lost control of it, right? Like, it is its own organization. Like, it doesn't really answer to anybody. And its goals are no longer, I don't think it's actually attempting to pursue goals anymore. I really do think that it is just like a festering boil that exists for its own purpose. Like, it exists to justify itself. Like, we're gonna run a spy operation. Well, why? What's the justification for running the spy operation? Because we have spies. And so we're gonna do a spy operation because we have spies. So we're gonna do that. Well, what's the goal of it? What's the point of it? What do you mean? The point of it is to spy. That's it. Like, that's it. Like, the justification is itself. It's just unto itself, according to the CIA. It doesn't need to have a point. It just needs to do what it does because it exists, and so it's going to do it. That's it. You got me thinking about Umar Huq's position on capitalism. That gives a good sense of where he stands. Yeah, fantastic. Capitalism didn't just rape the planet laughing and cause climate change that way. It did something which history will think of as even more astonishing, by quite predictably imploding into fascism at precisely the moment when the world needed cooperation. It made it impossible, more or less, for the fight against climate change. Yeah. And a big part of that is to throw enough wood on the LGBT fire to make it look scary and powerful to the poor rural man. Queer groups and from hierarchies for who's most right, it's learned behavior. Yeah, I don't even like the communities anymore. Have a good one, Rose. Trump's following is becoming pseudo-religious in nature, yet Donald Trump gives people an identity he makes people think that they're advocating for is important. Yeah, I think that's right. Like, again, like Trump has stepped into the evangelical cult pretty easily, right? Like, it's been a pretty easy transition for him because it's the same grift. It's the same grift, right? It's just instead of you got to trust me. I'm a rich billionaire. I know what I'm doing. I'm a very smart man, right? Like I'm very intelligent. One of the smartest people, right? It's Jesus is a very smart man. He's very intelligent. Jesus is a very good man. You gotta pay attention to Jesus. It's the exact same grift. It's just like a little slight adjustment. Like that all the Christian grifter is doing is holding up a Jesus mask. Well, Donald Trump doesn't have the Jesus mask. Donald Trump is the Donald Trump mask, right? And Donald Trump's is a mask, right? Like the orange skin, the hair, the look that he has, it's all manufactured. Like he knows that he's orange. Like he knows that he's orange. Like, are you kidding me? And like he knows that he's not doing that to quote unquote look good. Right? Like this is something that I think is a big misunderstanding for lots of people. Like lots of people make fun of the way Donald Trump looks. Donald Trump's look is iconic. It's iconic. You know exactly who this guy is. Like, and he's easy to create images of and spoofs of. It's exactly how Hitler operated, right? With the mustache, right? What you think Hitler was walking around with that mustache because he thought it was like a big fashion statement? He thought he looked cool? No. He did it because it was recognizable, right? Orange man bad, yeah. But those sorts of statement, orange man bad, that actually works in Trump's favor. That actually works in Trump's favor, like because you know exactly who that is, right? Like it's nobody else. Donald Trump's mouth looks like a prolapsed sphincter. And really good grifters and really good con men and really good propagandists are very good at this. That they take the criticisms that are thrown at them and they flip them over into positives, right? That it is actually how Tyrion Lannister said, right? That if you use the insult as a shield, they can't use it as a weapon against you. And Jordan Peterson is really good at this. I find myself always bringing up Jordan Peterson, but it's absolutely the truth. Like the whole lobster thing, right? Like he was widely ridiculed across the spectrum for his claims regarding lobsters and his justification of hierarchies with lobsters. Well, you know what he does? He sells lobster merchandise. Like if you go to Jordan Peterson's website, you can buy a bunch of t-shirts, you can buy hats, you can buy all kinds of things. They have lobsters all over them, right? And he did the same thing when somebody did a Captain America comic. And they basically made Red Skull Jordan Peterson. They used exactly the same rhetoric, and they turned Red Skull into Jordan Peterson. And so Jordan Peterson sold merchandise about it. It's like brilliant. He just like completely pivoted it, found a way to make a ton of money off of it, right? And that's what these people do, right? Because they don't have a moral center. There's no moral core to these people. They have no principles. Money is their principle. That if they will gladly commodify and sell themselves if it means that they can make money, right? That's the level of their dedication to the cult. Remember, money is God. Money is God. That nothing is more important than the self, and nothing is more important than their own stupidity and illiteracy. Like, and the gaslighting and the grift, like the reason why I've kept this article up, right? This is from the New York Times. Your brain has tricked you into thinking everything is worse. So the gaslighting is getting obvious. The gaslighting is getting on the nose, right? That they're starting to become desperate. They're starting to act in a way that is obviously desperate, and articles like this are obviously desperate. that, it's certainly not the collapsing economy. It's certainly not the spreading poverty. It's certainly not the massive fentanyl crisis. It's certainly not the mass incarceration crisis. It's certainly not the concentration camps on the border. It's certainly not the Muslim ban or the trans genocide. It's certainly not the decline into fascism. It's certainly not the fact that the ruling class has obviously abandoned us. It's certainly not that all institutions have lost their credibility whatsoever. It's certainly not that even those who do the right thing and take out the loan and go to school and all that are themselves turned around and abandoned completely. It's certainly none of this. It's your fault. It's your brain that has tricked you into thinking everything is worse. So you have a problem. It's obviously your fault. That the grifting is deep. The grifting is deep and the gaslighting is deep in this society. And it's starting to wear thin. Enough people are starting to say, wait a minute, I don't think it is my fault. I don't think it is my fault. Like, I think that there is a larger system at work that is actually working in order to abandon us. And the grift has gotten quite serious. And the strategy moving forward for the death cult isn't, as these grifts and as this gaslighting falls apart, it isn't going to be to continue gaslighting, although they will to the degree that it's successful. It'll just be to physically stop people from organizing. That's where they're actually going to start moving, right? Milo, dude, what's up? What's up? Oh, it's your ball. You want to get your ball? Go get it. My dog literally sitting there whining at me. Where's your toy, buddy? Go get it. Go get it. Cute little guy. Cute little guy. And, like, we all know that the system is completely designed to fail around us, right? So here's an article from the CBC. Canada Bread agrees to $50 million fine for role in bread price fixing scandal. Well, $50 million for these corporations is basically nothing, right? And the truth is that until we actually start recognizing that we need to put these people in jail, like, these people need to experience jail, right? These people need to go to prison. If you're willing to fine somebody $50 million, you should be willing to put them in prison. And until these people actually go to prison for these obvious crimes that they're obviously committing, then there isn't any justice. No jail, no justice. Real straightforward, right? No jail, no justice. That this fine, $50 million, that's just built into their plan. That they go, okay, we're going to do a price fixing scandal, like we're going to fix the price, and it'll come out eventually that we're fixing the price, right? But we'll make a whole bunch of money. We'll make like $200 million fixing the price, and then when we get caught, you know, we'll fight it in court and blah blah blah, and then we'll get fined probably about $50 million. So we'll make a net gain of $100 million, all told. This is how they think about it, right? And then they expense that and get reimbursed by the CRA, exactly, right? So the entire thing is built into the way that they think about it. When if we actually lived in a society that cared about justice at all, we would be saying, oh, you're fixing bread. Okay, cool. You'll go to jail for 5 years. And then they would go, oh, okay. I don't want to go to jail for 5 years. So, wah, 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 wah. But, like, we're starting to decline and degrade in a serious way in this regard. Here's an article that I saw. The state that may let corporations vote in elections. Delaware Democrats could pass GOP legislation letting businesses cast ballots in a municipal election. So literally, we are going to give corporations the state of Delaware is actually considering giving corporations voting rights. Huh? That's a normal society, eh? That's a normal society we live in, where corporations get voting rights. Wouldn't that be great? Sorry, guys, my phone is just blowing up. 1 second. Somebody's just blowing my phone up. I gotta make sure that everything's okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Everything's fine. Corporate personhood. And it's not a death cult. Like, that's the best part, right? That we are supposed to believe that it's not a religious cult. We're supposed to believe it's not a religious cult when we give non-existent entities personhood, right? I feel like that's basically the argument in a nutshell, don't you think? Like, there was a person the other day that was asking me, like, how is capitalism a death cult? That's what I should have said. Well, have you noticed how we give personhood to non-existent entities? That we basically just take an ephemeral form and then say that's a living being? What is that if not a god that we worship? Like, obviously they don't exist. They shouldn't have voting rights. They shouldn't have the right to... Like, it's so... like, stupid. Like, it's not even terrifying. It's just stupid. And it's amazing how stupid we are and how stupid we want to be. This idea that to let corporations vote in elections is so obviously stupid that it can only be done because somebody thinks they can make money out of it, which is itself the stupidest possible idea. Even from the perspective of right libertarians, corporations are simply a group of personal contracts. How does contracting with other people create personhood? Well, and what's really interesting is that as we go along, these corporations are ending up with more rights than actual people. Like, corporations are turning into freer people than actual people, which is wild. When can you stream on TikTok again? They banned me for a week, so I won't be able to for a week. Who knew that saying we should kill Nazis would lead to a ban on TikTok? We're in the 6th mass extinction. Last one was the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. It's a death cult. Yeah, I'm thinking I need to register about 200 corporations. There you go. We figured it out. Let's all register. Let's all register 200 corporations, and then we'll be off to the races. We'll be off to the races. I just love this article. The unexplained rise of cancer among millennials. Like, what are you talking about? You literally poisoned the air, the water, the land. I literally saw a Chernobyl-level event just south of the border from me. I literally saw that with my own eyes. We watched that happen. I wonder why cancer's going up. All we did was poison the food and the water and the air and the land. We're constantly bombarding them with radiation. Okay, it's unexplainable. Who can figure this out? Oh yeah, well, enjoy your microplastics. Like, Brandon White. I don't know if I've ever seen you here, Brandon. Hi, John. What's your opinion of the sovereign citizen movement? I don't know what that is, Brandon. So let's all, because you're new. Sovereign citizen movement. I swear to God, Brandon, if this is Nazi stuff, I swear to God. Yeah, what is the sovereign citizen movement? This is from the BBC, so they're usually pretty soft-handing when it comes to covering Nazism. A growing movement of people who believe that laws do not apply to them. I actually already love it. So-called sovereign citizens believe they are immune from government rules and in some cases, including recently in Australia and the US, have violently confronted police. The FBI has described the movement, which lacks any organizational structure, as domestic terrorism. Of course, they would. The ideology hatched in the 70s, yabba yabba. This sounds like, just from like, this sounds like, look, my opinion is very simple. It is up to institutions to justify their existences to citizens. That it is not up to us to justify ourselves to any institution anywhere at any time. At all. Ever. It is up to the institution to justify its existence to us. We live in a society that has no credibility any longer. It has abandoned us. It is not working for the interests of the people. It is not justifying its existence at all. It's not trying to justify its existence. You do not need to follow the laws or the rules of any institution that cannot justify itself to you or to the society. They're not feeding us. They're not clothing us. They're not providing us with shelter. We don't need to follow their laws. The only reason one should follow the laws of the society that it exists is because they will kidnap you and put you in a little box. Or they will shoot you with a gun. So it's the threat of violence that is the only thing they have as an attempt to justify themselves, but it's no justification whatsoever. So if a sovereign citizen movement is showing up and saying, we don't abide by any of this, great. It's like Robin Hood and the Merry Men, right? Like Robin Hood and the Merry Men weren't abiding by the laws of Prince John, right? Well, and why not? Why weren't they abiding by the laws of Prince John? Because Prince John lost his credibility as a leader. He lost the credibility to rule in the eyes of the citizenry. That the system of governance no longer had credibility, and so the people stopped abiding by the rules. And that's exactly where we're at now. That you no longer need to pay any attention to what any of these people say outside of the threat of violence. And moreover, the system knows that that's the case. I think a big reason why there's this push to digitization of currencies, a reason why there's a big push to make it so that all systems need to be attached to the system of digitization, is because they understand that they've lost their credibility, and so they need to put in hard systems of control. And a digital currency is a hard system of control. The only trade that you're allowed to have is on this digital system that we, the state, and the corporate owners of the state control. And of course it's going to fail, but they're going to try it anyway because they're fascists, right? So I am more or less in support of this, insofar as they can get away with it. Should such a movement gain in enough prominence that it creates enough of a movement, they'll send the FBI in and they'll clear it out. Like that's what I expect to see. Like, let's say there's a small group in Pennsylvania that live, like, and Pennsylvania would be the spot given the abandonment that they've experienced. So let's say that small town, right, East Palestine, decides, forget this. We're now sovereign citizens. We don't abide by the law. We don't care about what anybody has to say. We're not paying any attention to any of the legal structures or any of that kind of stuff. We've been abandoned. We're abandoning you back, right? So let's say 10,000 people start to act this way and start to organize under that principle. Yeah, they'll just send the FBI in and they'll crack some heads and they'll reinstall order. Like, but the whole goal of today's society, guys, I hate to do this, but Milo is like really scratching on the door. Sorry, I gotta pause for a second. Milo, dude, I took you down. Why are you're losing your mind? Okay, let's go. I took you down, buddy. What's this? What's this? Okay, sorry about that, guys. Milo was just like real scratch, and then he went down and just like real, like let one really go. So he needed it. What were we talking about? Sovereign citizens. Yeah, this is great. Like, to me, it's a like I've been saying very clearly that we need to be organizing locally, right? And it's under this exact idea and this exact principle that we need to be organizing locally. And if we don't organize locally, and if we don't actually organize along this way, then we're going to be facing some serious issues. And that's more or less this idea. Brandon White retracted the message. Too late, Brandon. I got it on tape. It's recorded forever. We're going to find you, Brandon. We're going to find you. So I went down, and there's a lady there who, her name is, I won't say her name, but she's always sitting out on the stoop, enjoying the sunlight, and she said, I have a beautiful singing voice. Isn't that nice? Ooh, that's awful. That's awful. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Sorry guys, this guitar is awful. Listen to this. Listen how horrible that is. Ugh. Was it that bad when it was not like this? It sounds okay. Ugh. And I don't want to tune it. So too bad. Sorry, cutting that one short. Oh man. What a ridiculous cast this one is. What a ridiculous cast this one is. What's the news? Yeah. Well, Jehone. You know, Jehone, maybe I'll go back to it then. Maybe I'm being a. No, it's definitely out of tune, bud. It's just killing me. It's even worse. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point in feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat, and Antarctica is covered in ice. Antarctica is covered in ice. That song was a real blessing. That song was a real blessing. Sometimes I do wonder. I do wonder at the idea. It seems to me nothing more than a minor miracle that song is a song that came to me. Thanks, Tablet. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know, I kind of forget it, you know? I forget it. I don't play that song all the time. I don't play it every day. I just kind of forget it, you know? I forget that song's as good. Vaporwave. What's Vaporwave? What's Vaporwave? For real. I have no idea what that is. Yeah, I know, Greg. Making me feel bad. Greg! I know, dude. I know. The reality is, dude, is my guitar is super old. It's super old. It was an inexpensive guitar in the first place. It's been a true and stalwart ally all along, but I know I need a new guitar. That's the truth of it. It doesn't hold the tune anymore. It's difficult to play. It's difficult to play. I've definitely played guitars that have been like way more pleasurable to play, way easier to play, and you know, money, as with all things, right? Just money. Maybe one of these days, like, a big influx of capital will come my way, and one of the first things I'll think of buying is a new guitar. Honestly, what I really need to do, and I probably should have moved on this a little bit this week, but I want to get a roommate. That's what I really need to do, is I need to get a roommate. Because if I can partition this space and make it so that this becomes my living space with a shared bathroom and kitchen area, and then have the bedroom become their living space, right? And I could rent it out. I feel like, boy, would that ever be a relief. That would be a huge financial boon, honestly. Like money. What a dumb thing we've invented, eh? Money. What a great idea this is. This whole, like, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to print money out of nothing, and we're going to base our entire society off of that. The idea that everybody needs to scrabble around to get this money. It's like, or, crazy thought, crazy idea. Sure, you can have your dumb idea of money if you want, but how about we keep food and shelter out of it? How about we actually allow people to have access to food and shelter? And then everyone could live a reasonable and decent life. And if you want to get people attached to this dumb money game, then maybe you'll need to justify that somehow. No? Just slavery? Got it. Vaporwave is more of an aesthetic. Think kitschy 80s neon lights. Got it. I have no idea how that would work for my work. A vaporwave version of my work. I don't know what that would even look like. Well, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I've got like 3 songs that I can safely call powerful. I think of all the songs that I've made, I think 3 of them I'm willing to really bank myself on. Like I'm really willing to say these are the keepers. And I think that's I wish my mom was here. I think is a keeper. Just Want Them to Be Free is absolutely a keeper. And the song I just played, Antarctica, I think is also a keeper. Those 3 songs I think are defining, and I think I would challenge anybody to tell me that those are not excellent songs. And I feel really blessed that it's me that managed, that somehow I became the tuning fork for those songs to come out. Which isn't to say, like, I feel like I've written some other songs that are okay, but I don't think... Like, one of the things that's happened to me recently as an artist is a lot of the art that I have produced through my life has very much been, like, wanting to force people to see the reality around them, right? Like, just like, oh, the shittiness, look how shitty. Like, a heavy critique is how I would describe it. But I think that's putting burdens onto people. A lot of the new music that I'm playing, a lot of these songs are not about putting a burden on people. It's about acknowledging the burdens that people are experiencing and then alleviating those burdens. Which is why I think they're better songs. Which is why I think they work better. And I'm hoping that I'm able to produce more. I've got one that I'm working on right now it's definitely not a criticism. It's definitely of a different tenor, but it's just banging around right now. It's just banging around right now. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The truth is that this fucking system of capital exhausts me. You know, like I spend all my time working for this goddamn ridiculous system, and then like you sit down and you try to write something, and it's exhausting. It's tiring. It takes energy. It takes like there's a reason why we're becoming such a culturally dead society, right? That our culture is basically turning into Marvel movies and just regurgitated garbage, remakes of stuff that was good before. And it's because everybody's exhausted, right? Nobody can create anything. And all the creative energy is getting poured into lattes, right? It's all just getting poured into lattes. And everybody's just wasting their time on this dumb bullshit. And nobody can actually have the time or the energy in order to actually sit down and create something good. That everything's just like, let's sell another Incredible Hulk movie. Let's sell another Thor movie, right? Like, it and there, which isn't to say that there aren't small examples of people that manage to create something that's worthwhile, but they're few and far between. Like, this should be a society that's producing like masters. We should be producing masters, and we're just not. We're just not producing master craftsmen. That everybody is just becoming a salesman, right? Like, that's all it is. It's just because you got to convince this small group of detached psychopaths who are willing to spend all their money to go down to the bottom of the ocean in a tube and then blow up, or shoot themselves into space. You got to convince them that this art that you're producing is worthwhile and has value. Yeah, we're a cultural wasteland. And like, anytime there are critiques or serious things that come out, serious criticisms, I think they come out, they only make it through because the ruling class is so dim-witted. So a real clear example of what I mean by that is the Mad Max movies, like the modern remake of Mad Max that they did, was actually a complete scathing indictment of the system of capital. It was probably the most scathing indictment I have seen of the system of capital until like Squid Game came out, or Parasite, and even those movies were like fairly subtle in their indictment, right? But Mad Max, like, the whole movie is predicated, like, it's a libertarian wet dream, isn't it? Like, as far as libertarians are concerned, if you're a libertarian watching Mad Max, the antagonist of the film, I forget his name offhand, but you guys all know what I'm talking about, the guy with the fucking crazy face and the mask and all that, he should be considered the hero, and Max would be considered the villain. Like, why isn't Max just following the rules? Like, why doesn't Max just abide? I mean, that guy owns the water, so he can do what he wants with it, right? Like, that kind of thing. But, like, that movie is about capitalism. It's about a person who owns an asset, water, that is absolutely crucial for people. He withholds it from the populace. Immortan Joe, fantastic. And he withholds water from the populace in exchange for their labor. Straight up capitalism, right? And if you're a libertarian watching that movie, you should be rooting for Immortan Joe, right? You shouldn't be rooting for Max. Like, yeah, I'm Australian. I have to know about Mad Max. Yeah, I mean, well, it is. It's an Australian masterpiece. It's an Australian masterpiece, right? Mel Gibson. Good old Mel Gibson. Good old Mel Gibson. What a wild artist Mel Gibson has turned out to be. What a madman. Like genuinely, it was like creating some of the craziest shit. But and what's so wild though is that everybody in the industry that interacts with this guy is like, no, he's a good guy, Mel Gibson. Sure, he said some things about the Jews at one time. But like, I don't know. You got like Robert Downey Jr. standing up on stage talking about how amazing Mel Gibson is. Anyway, I don't actually care that much about Mel Gibson. Like, he did Passion of the Christ, which I actually found that film, even as a Christian, I found that film to be extremely offensive. Like, it's so crazy to me that we live in this society where, like, you can watch the most grotesque, violent shit you want to watch. Like, you can watch it in theater. They'll release something like Passion of the Christ in theater, and everybody will just be like, oh, wow, right? It's basically gore porn. But if you were to release just like a normal movie, except there were boobs in it, everybody's like, oh, the scandal. Oh, I saw a penis. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Popeye. I know, buddy. Who's that? What's that voice? Yeah, it is a snuff film. Dude, for sure. Like, what a creepy... Like, why did you feel the need to make that film? Like, what's the point of that film? Like, what's the point of Passion of the Christ, even? Because, like... Milo's dead convinced there's something going on. My friend in China wanted to explain Easter to his Chinese wife, so he showed her Passion of the Christ. Dude. Brutal. Like, brutal. Like, I don't understand what the point of that movie actually is. Is it to, like, really... is it really to reveal the brutality of the whole thing, I guess? Like, the true brutality of what it was to live in the Roman state? I mean, I guess there's some kind of value there, right? That, like, people do tend to forget about how vicious the Roman Empire actually was, right? The banal cruelty of it all, right? There's actually, like, a really great show. The first season of the show Rome, I really felt captured, in essence, the banal cruelty of the Roman Empire, and really, really emphasized and really got across to the viewer the horrific, and the word is banality, that there was violence everywhere, and everyone was just sort of used to it, that it was just part of life, you know. And I distinctly remember a sequence of scenes where one of the main characters, like a Roman Praetorian guard, is told, he's asked, what's the procedure for when we go into a village? And the guy just answers what the procedure is, which is that you crucify someone. The first thing they did is that when they walked into a village is they crucified someone in order to get a piece of information. They didn't ask the question. They started with the crucifixion. And he was told, okay, go do that. And so he went, and they did that, and they crucified a fellow. And the actor that they had playing the part of the fellow who was being crucified, that was very effective. He did an incredible job, actually. If I ever met that guy, I would tell him that he produced one of the most powerful pieces of art I have seen in a show, is him enacting and acting as if he is being crucified. It was incredibly good. Like, good, but incredible. And so they put him up. Then they ask the question, and they immediately get the answer, because it's such an obvious thing to get an answer from. And then he turns to the fellow who just put the guy up, rather, and says, okay, take him down. And I'll never forget the reaction from the guard was this sort of reaction of like, but I just put him up. So he's like, oh man, I just did all that work for nothing. Not what a horrible thing we've done to an innocent man. Not a terrible, like what a horrible trauma to inflict on somebody. Nothing like that. No. It's more work. And it just like really enforced and reinforced in my mind, like, yeah, like that kind of banality, that kind of banal cruelty persisted in the Roman Empire. And there's actually a great book called The Banality of Evil, which was about the interviews that they did with Nazi soldiers post-World War II. And the conclusion was that most people were enacting these very evil things, not out of a sense of like heightened, haha, we're going to do this, all that, but rather just a sense of like, yeah, this is just how you got ahead. Like I'm told to press this button and that'll give me a promotion, so I do it. And it's just this sort of sense of banality about the whole thing, where there's kind of a sense of indifference more than anything else. And I think you can see that indifference and that banality in today's society. That there are psychopaths who enjoy the suffering of others, but the truth is that the system perpetuates itself because of the indifference of the majority. That the system is evil and most people don't care. That they're quite banal about it. Ligand Disease says, I remember listening to one of Dan Carlin's podcasts called Pain for Tainment, which mentioned how the Romans literally watched torture executions while they had lunch, like watching a baseball game. Yeah. I think, yeah. Like, this is what we're talking about. Like, that's a fucked up society. I love how silly the trial before the crucifixion was. Jesus was there on trial alongside Jesus Barabbas, which translates to Jesus, Son of the Father. I don't remember that, honestly. I don't remember. But, like, the whole thing was just a sham, right? The whole thing was just a sham, which was the entire point, right? The entire point of the story of Christ's crucifixion is as a scathing indictment and a scathing critique of the empire. That it had nothing to do, there was no justice, there was no credibility, right? That the Roman Empire had no credibility. That the only way that they were able to enforce themselves was through violence. And that the Christian doctrine was actually terrifying to such a system that had lost its credibility, because the Christian doctrine was saying, hey, love one another, right? Give a shit about one another, care about one another. And if your whole system is based on the idea that people don't care about one another and that are willing to live in this state of banal violence and tolerate and permit it, then people walking around and saying, no, we're not going to tolerate that, is the most terrifying thing. And that's as true today as it was then. That the systems of violence have not gotten so explicit. Like, the state isn't grabbing people and openly crucifying them, right? But every single homeless person you walk by is like a capitalist art piece. Every single homeless person you walk by is a capitalist art piece. Just the capitalists saying, yeah, we could do this. And we'll happily do this to you, right? If you stop cooperating, if you stop obliging, right? There's a spot on the street for you, right? And if enough of you get together, we'll just beat you up with cops and put you somewhere else. Like or we'll start passing legislation like they did in Barrie. Here in Barrie, Ontario, they actually passed legislation recently essentially criminalizing homelessness. And not only criminalizing homelessness, so sleeping on the street, doing all that kind of stuff, but also if you provide aid to people who are homeless, that's a crime in Barrie now. So if I were to give, let's say, a sleeping blanket, right? So if I were to give a sleeping blanket to a homeless person sleeping out on the street, I could be charged with a crime in Barrie, Ontario. Like, the collapse downward into fascism is happening, and it's happening rapidly. And it won't be too much longer until the fascists start acting openly. And it won't be too much longer until there are public acts of violence. The stories that we see in the Bible and the stories that we see in the Roman Empire are going to begin reflecting. We're going to see a reflection. It's going to begin happening. And because history repeats itself. Is it going to be a crucifixion? Is it going to be straight up like a plank of wood and nail people? Like, probably not. But it will be something along those lines. There will be like public lynchings that used to happen, right? And these sorts of things are coming. They are coming. Like, you don't commit to something like a purging of the trans population and you don't commit to something like that if you don't have a plan for after, right? That there's always a next target. What's my opinion on the plethora of social media influencers who film their acts of kindness to the less fortunate? It's actually a really complex question, right? Like, I do think that there's a certain amount, like, they would probably think of themselves that, like, the argument that they would use for themselves is, well, I want to try to perpetuate a culture of providing kindness to the less fortunate, and I want to give people a sense that they'll be rewarded and that there is a reward for doing this, that we should be doing good deeds and acts of kindness for the less fortunate. I should be encouraging that. And so I should be doing that in order to spread that around and have people think, oh, I saw this guy doing this, so maybe I'll also participate in this idea, right? So I think that's what they would argue. I do think that there probably is a more cynical underbelly of it, that people are very much like, I want to have this opinion of me, so I'll give, a little bit of wealth in this regard, and that'll have people look kindly on me, and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, though, I just think it is probably, like, it's fine, right? That's more or less what I come to. It's like, it's fine. Like, it's people doing something nice, and they're gonna film it. The question, of course, is why is their charity necessary in the first place? That's the more important question. And you actually saw something like this with Mr. Beast. Like, Mr. Beast actually had like a really, like, he paid for people to be able to see, right? There's like a whole group of people he paid a bunch of money and they could see again. And then he actually asked the question on Twitter. He was like, why is the state not doing this? Right? That's actually pretty potent. Like, that's pretty powerful. That Mr. Beast is just like, yeah, I did this. It was easy. It cost money, obviously, but it didn't cost me anything else. It felt good to do. These people can now see, why isn't the state doing this? Right? Like, that's the power. That's where the power would come from. Right? And so I'm more or less okay with it. I don't think that, like, even if there is that cynical element to it, where people are like, I'll do this and then everyone will think I'm a good guy and then I'll be able to do blah, blah, blah. So, well, okay, so your worst case scenario is that they gave money to the poor. Give your money to the poor. Like, filming it for cred? Nah, okay. But the money went to the poor, didn't it? So that's what I care about. Like, that's what I care about. I'm not a huge fan of charity. I feel like charities are a symptom of a deficiency of the state providing for its own people. Yeah. If it has to exist in capitalism, fine, but it's not great that it has to exist. Yeah, I think that's right. That's more or less my opinion. Like, you're talking to a guy that thinks that food and shelter should be free. Like, straight up. Like, I don't think that we should be paying money for food and shelter. I think that those things should be freely available to any citizen at any time, without question at all. That we could create a system of organization to ensure that housing is spread equitably and easily. Everyone would have a place to live. It would be no problem whatsoever. I think it would be easy to do. And we could also do the same thing with food, right? We're throwing away so much food, you guys. Like, I just don't even think people comprehend and understand how much food we're actually throwing away. The idea that food should even, like, if you refuse to acknowledge that food should be free, well, then food should be probably about half the price it is now, right? Given the amount of food we throw away. Like, we literally could pass a law saying food needs to be donated, right? Like, that if you're going to throw food into the bin, it has to be donated, right? Food prices would plummet. They would plummet. The reason why they throw food away is because they know that if they actually did those things, if they sold it at a marked down, if they did all that kind of stuff, that food prices would plummet. Because they're producing so much food, they've got to throw away so much of it. And so they're doing what they did with, like, the diamond market, right? They're manufacturing a market. They're manipulating the market in order to keep prices high. They figured out how to do it. So when I say that, like, all of this charity stuff, like, yeah, I wish it didn't exist either, but it does. And it's so ridiculous that it exists in a moment when, like, we literally could feed the populace and they would have to pay nothing for it. Gift economies and hunter-gatherer societies function by sharing gifts with the other publicly. Giving more to your fellow people increased your social standing. Yeah. Charity is a tax scheme. If you donate money to McDonald's, they give it to a charity who issued them a tax receipt for their taxes. Yeah. Instead of donating, these fast food restaurants throw their food out every single night. Yeah. All of that is true. Like, this is what's gotten kind of embarrassing about Western civilization. Right? This is what's gotten embarrassing about Western civilization, is that there are solutions. Really, really obvious solutions. Like, really, 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 really obvious solutions. Things that we could do today. Things that we could do today as a people and enact literally today. And it would alleviate. Would it 100% solve the issue 100%? Unlikely, but it would at least alleviate the problem. And there's a bunch of things like this. Like, we literally could say food that's going in the bin has to be donated. Like, we just could say that it has to go to a food bank. You have to send it to a food bank. Like, you cannot throw it in the bin. Yeah, the solution, do not generate profit, they do not partake, right? And then, of course, you have larger solutions, right, which is nationalize the food distribution network, right? Like, Loblaw shouldn't exist. Gale and Weston should not exist. Like, this idea that there's this worthless, pathetic millionaire, or billionaire, rather, inheritor who is somehow we consider important for whatever reason, because he was the son of some guy. Who cares? Like, why do we even listen to this guy? Who cares what he thinks? He has a vote like everybody else, and he should be able to vote. But outside of that, we shouldn't give a shit what he thinks. And yet he owns a major section of the food distribution network. Huge, enormous, like, multi-block sized buildings full of food owned by this guy. Why? I can't imagine a stupider idea. I can't imagine a stupider way to think about the world, but we worship stupidity, so, like, of course. And the truth, honestly, the truth is that we're far too cowardly with a lot of this stuff. Like, we're far too cowardly. You bring up an idea like nationalizing the food supply, the food distribution network, and people get really cagey. People get really like, the government never is the most efficient. It's just like, like, you're just watching a brain dead civilization commit suicide. Is really what you're doing. Just like a brain dead people who want to be stupid, who are proud of how stupid they are, who are happy being this stupid, watching their society implode as they actively betray their children. Like, it's wild. It's wild to watch this. Are we capable of snapping to our senses? Are we capable of coming to and actually recognizing, like, oh, like, we actually probably should make a society that's livable for the next generation. But we don't care about the next generation, right? We're spiritually dead. And part of being spiritually dead is an inability to perceive things outside of yourself. That when we talk about spirituality, right, one of the core essences, one of the core aspects of what spirituality is all about is the ability to perceive things beyond yourself. The ability to perceive another person, to see the world through another person's eyes, to see the world through, even if it's an imagined being, to see the world through an imagined being of a meta sort. That secularly, it would be like, imagine you were an alien looking down at the earth from on high. What would you think of what was going on? But and that to me is one of the core essences of what spirituality is actually about, and why spirituality is useful, because it allows people, individual people and collections of people, to even make the attempt to perceive themselves outside of themselves, not themselves through their own eyes or their own experiences, but themselves through the position of through the eyes of another person. That to me is the essence and core of what spirituality is all about. And we live in a spiritually dead society that not only doesn't care, but openly mocks the idea of pursuing any kind of spiritual pursuit of any sort, that actively works to purposefully misunderstand, based on very thin premises. Good evening, Jade. Having extravagant charity functions for rich people to congratulate themselves on giving money is absurd. People in need only deserve help if rich get richer in the process. Yeah, there's that aspect of it. Like, and I think there is also the aspect of like if you give money to a charity at a till somewhere, you're just giving that company a tax break. That's all you're doing, right? Like, they make billions of dollars a year. They can donate to that charity if they care about it. They're not looking for you for charity. They're looking for you for tax breaks. That's what they're doing there. So it's not a serious thing. Yeah, United Way CEO earns more than $230K. Each vice president over $120K. Yeah. And each operating officer. Yeah. Like, and most of these charities, from my position, most of these charities exist not to alleviate the problem, but to benefit from the problem, right? That here in the city of Toronto, the system is set up so that the more homeless people there are, the more funding the systems designed to alleviate homelessness get, right? So you're completely incentivized to increase homelessness as a person who is existing in these offices that are designed to, whose stated goal is to alleviate homelessness. Like, it's incredulous. I think a lot of people hate the idea of a social program for poor people, things like housing first programs, because they hate the idea of poor people using drugs and continuing to live. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I follow universal basic income groups, and it's gotten really kind of plain to me that the supporters of that idea and lots of people on the left don't really want to admit that the real core issue of what's going on in today's society is that fascism is very popular. That is actually the problem. That fascism maybe isn't taking hold, like, politically here in Canada, right? But the ideology of fascism has taken hold. That culturally, there is that culturally we are a very fascist people, and we are very much in favor of the idea that it's up to a person to justify themselves to the system, right? That's essentially Jordan Peterson's whole thing, right?
There are hierarchies, and you need to work within the hierarchy.
Well, that's saying, okay, the state exists, or the institutions exist, and you need to sacrifice yourself to them, which is inverted. These institutions do not exist for us to justify ourselves to them. It's exactly the opposite. That if these systems refuse to justify themselves to us, then we don't need to abide by them. And I think most people in the society, though, do believe in this sort of banal fascism, that might makes right, that if you're strong and powerful, if you're stronger and more powerful than the other guy, then you're better. There is no genuine philosophical discussion. There is no genuine conversation of anything ethical. There's certainly no conversation about the larger human spirit. None of that exists in any kind of serious and real way outside of, oh, this wizard told me a thing. Oh, the dojo, that's kind of you, bud. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your donation, bud. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit the bells, hit the whistles, do the things. Once again, thank you to the dojo. And also an opportunity to say thank you to my Patreons. Thank you so much, guys, for donating. I really do appreciate it. I know that I am really bad at doing the Patreon things. I know that I am, but I'm fucking exhausted all of the time. I'm sober my whole life, and I grew up with a lot of anti-drug propaganda in America, and I was very judgmental of drug users. But you should want a better life for everyone who uses drugs. Well, and there was an interesting series of experiments that, like, initially one of the justifications for the war on drugs was they put this rat in a cage, and they put a bottle of water and a bottle of water that was laced with heroin in the cage. And eventually the rat just did heroin until it died. And this was one of the justifications for the war on drugs, because they were like, oh, heroin, you get hooked on it, you get addicted to it. And so we got to fight back against this, and so on and so forth. And of course, along comes another researcher and looks at that study and goes, so what you did is you isolated a rat in a metal cage with nothing to do except heroin. And then were surprised when it did heroin. And so what he did is he replicated the experiment, but instead of isolating the rat, he created a rat paradise. He created a big cage that didn't look like a cage, right? It was quite nice. So he created like an ecosystem, and there were toys and things to do, and then there were a bunch of rats, right? So it was like a rat paradise, right? Where rats could just chill out and live their life and be the best rats that rats can be, right? And they had like a little rat community. And then put a little bottle of water laced with heroin. And every single rat tried the heroin, right? Eventually, because every single rat's curious. But nobody got hooked on the heroin, right? So they tried it once and then abandoned it, because they're like, okay, not a thing, not necessary, right? Curiosity sated, okay. And then not only that, he also replicated the previous study, where he took a rat out of the paradise, isolated it in this condition. Sure enough, the rat starts doing heroin. Then he takes that rat out of that situation, puts him back into the rat paradise, right? Well, according to the previous theory, he would just go back and continue doing the heroin, right? Not what happened. That he became reintegrated into the community and into the society that existed and stopped doing the heroin. So what's going on with drug users and what's going on with people who are getting caught in that cycle is that they're becoming isolated. They feel as though they don't have any support systems and they don't have anywhere to turn to. And if this sounds like it's being done on purpose because of the system of capital, you're bang on. Because you can't sell a drug to people who don't want to use it. And And so the solution, from my perspective, is to empower communities, to give people time, to give people, like, I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy that there aren't just, like, regular meetups that happen. Like, people are struggling to find, like, girlfriends and friends and boyfriends in areas, and I'm like, this is an easy problem to solve. This is, like, the easiest problem to solve, and our system is incapable of producing it. The private sector doesn't produce it. The public sector doesn't produce it, because we've lost credibility as a people on the most basic human shit. Where do we go to meet people, right? Oh, I guess a shitty club. Oh. Isaac says philanthropists like Bill Gates screw their workers and then tell them they can become partners by alleviating poverty by donating. Yeah, it's a joke. If you want people to get better from drugs, they're going to need food, housing, support. Yeah. Otherwise, it's really hard to get better if you're on the streets or in a shelter. Yeah. Like, I always find it odd that when I get talking about homelessness, people want to immediately say, oh, well, those people are hooked on drugs or they have a mental illness. They want to jump over the homeless issue into this drug and mental illness conversation. And I've steadily begun to say, well, you know what probably makes the drug addiction worse? You know what probably makes the mental illness worse is not having a home. That it's not going to cure their mental illness, but it's certainly going to alleviate it. Like, it's certainly going to help them get through it a little bit easier if they know they have a place to live. You know? Yeah. Methane's got it. Good to see you, Methane. And Matthias, good to see you guys. Gates isn't a philanthropist. He's only pretending, lying. Capitalism and philanthropy are contradictory. Yeah. World is on fire and no one can afford to live, but every news headline is about some billionaire at the bottom of the ocean because he felt like checking out the Titanic. Yeah, dude. I gotta tell you, like, this is it for me, man. Like, womp womp womp. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, I hate the demonization of those who use drugs. In my opinion, the rampant drug use is a sign we're in a broken system. Yeah, like, absolutely. Portugal is absolutely the success story, right? That if anybody is doing anything other than what Portugal did, they're a fraud. I'm to this point. Portugal decriminalized all drugs, including cocaine and heroin. Just said police will not be involved in this process. We are decriminalizing it. We are going to begin treating it like a health crisis, and their drug deaths went down, drug use went down, drug-related crime went down, like, and now it's the lowest in Europe. So anybody who's doing anything other than that is on purpose, perpetuating a failed system that doesn't work. And the reason why they're doing it on purpose is because they can make money off of it. That's the hard truth of it. That I am completely done and over with this idea that, well, what are we supposed to do? Oh, it's such a difficult, it's so stupefying. No, it isn't. We have a very clear model that was 100% done successfully, that you can obviously look at and obviously see and then obviously do. Obviously. We are choosing not to, on purpose, for money. That is exactly what is happening. That is exactly what is happening. And the truth of it, like, one of the things about this 5 billionaires at the bottom of the ocean thing, like, one of these billionaires could make this happen. One of them could make it happen. So when one of these guys dies, great. I'm completely fine with this. Like, these people are losers. I can't imagine being such a huge loser that you want to spend your time on this plane of reality spreading misery. Like, these people are enormous losers. And will be considered, like a guy like Henry Ford, for example. Like, Henry Ford is the reason the Nazis had a war machine. Like, what a huge loser. What a massive loser that guy is. Like, the fact that people are still driving around with Ford on their trucks. Like, Ford should be a dirty word. It should be a 4-letter word. We should be considering that Ford should be as bad as Goebbels in this society. Like, the World War II would not have happened if not for Henry Ford. Crazy how much money we have all of a sudden when rich people are trapped in a PS5 controlled tube, or when we need to be helicoptered off a mountain. But when a homeless person is sleeping in snow, yeah. Chances are good these guys are dead, by the way. Like, it's very, very unlikely that they're going to be recovered in the first place. Like, it's very, very unlikely they're going to be found, right? And then it's very, very unlikely that like, it's pretty unlikely that it was just like, oh, communications went out. No, like, chances are extremely good that something went wrong and the thing fucking imploded. That it went like that. Like, chances are extremely good these guys are dead. Like, they're blaming Starlink. Okay. World would be better with a few less billionaires, yeah. We have Venezuela next to Colombia, and they're completely different societies, even though they're like brothers. Colombia is the cocaine lab for the U.S., and Venezuela is fighting the drug cartels. Yeah. Herd study of chimps saw they were depressing chimps, removed them, thinking chimps would benefit, but on return found them dead. Depression is the canary in the coal mine, indicating imminent danger. Yeah. I saw that Marianne Williams clip, too. Marianne Williams, she does spit fire, I'll tell you that. Green and Bobert are fighting. Green calling Bo a little bitch. Fantastic. That's just kind of classic stuff, honestly. Guys, I think that Lauren Boebert is so cute. I'm just going to pause for a minute. I do. I think that she's the cutest. I would like to date... Lauren Boebert. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's just like the cutest. She's the cutest little button. Little button face, little nose. Look at her. She's like a little Who from Whoville. Don't you just want to put her in like a little pocket? Just like, you could open up your pocket and she would just be like, we should kill all the trans people. And you'd be like, Lauren. Command genius. That's perfect. I understand, okay? Yeah, her teeth are too perfect. You're right. You're right. Perfect. Perfect. What do I think of RFK Jr.? Can I tell you, I actually listened to RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan's podcast, and what that has led to is now Joe Rogan is actually challenging. There are people on Twitter, of course, tweeting that RFK is full of shit, and now Joe Rogan is outright challenging these people with money on the line, no less, to come on his show with RFK and debate on these issues. And I have to tell you, let's talk specifically about the COVID thing, because I think that's what the most controversial stuff that RFK has been saying, right? I think that there should be an open conversation. That's where I'm at. Like, I'm not necessarily sold, but I think that the conversation needs to become that there needs to be a conversation. My position is very simple, especially when it comes to the pandemic. When it comes to the pandemic, when it comes to COVID, the COVID period, there needs to be we need a catharsis. We need to actually have a real conversation. We need to actually have a conversation so that we can come to a catharsis moment. We need truth and reconciliation. right? We can't just be living in our bubbles. We can't just be living in our bubbles. COVID was such a huge issue. The pandemic was such an enormous issue. We are going to be bearing that scar for a long time. And we definitely need to get into a room with people who have expertise on all sides and hash it out. We need that. We absolutely need that. And I don't care if you agree or disagree with whoever or whatever on any kind of system. We owe it to ourselves as a people to do this. Even if you think RFK Jr. is a lunatic, crazed, oh man, conspiracy theorist, all that kind of stuff. Even if you think, like Tinker, yeah, even if you think this, even if this is the case, we owe it to ourselves as a people to have a serious and open conversation about this. There are huge sections of the society who are COVID conspiracy people. Enormous sections of the society. And there are enormous sections of the society that are on the other side. So we need to actually take that seriously and have a real conversation. And I find it the most startling thing about it to me. The most startling thing about what's going on in today's society is the refusal to have the conversation. Like, I find the podcast was removed from Spotify this week. I find that to be the most offensive thing. I find that to be extraordinarily offensive. That someone like RFK would have his content removed. Like, really think about this. Okay? Like, if he's wrong, it should be, if not easy, it should be worthwhile to show how and why in a debate, which I think they should have. Removing content like this only inflames the other side. It only inflames it and only makes it more heightened, and only gives a sense of self-justification. Oh, they can't hear the truth. They can't take the truth. They're taking it down. The deep state, they're coming after. They're silencing us. Yeah, Tinker. Like, yeah. Like, my position on guys like this is that they're so entrenched within the system of capital that even if they did mean well, they wouldn't know how to. Right? Because their entire worldview exists within the box of capitalism. And so all solutions are capitalist solutions. So even if they did mean well, even if they were going in there with the spirit of we're going to do something about this and all of this, well, the only solutions that they're willing to put out there, the only solutions that they're willing to put out there are capitalist solutions. And so solutions that are destined to fail. Right? I'm incorrect. It's still available, just more difficult to find. Even that, but even in that podcast, they were talking about some of his content being removed. That there were conversations that he had with other people that were removed, and that people are not willing to interview him because they're worried that their stuff is going to get removed. Right? So I find that to be very concerning. That instead of actually having a conversation and actually coming forward and talking about it and working through it, which is difficult, right? Instead of that, it's silencing. No, we're not going to talk about that. No, that's misinformation. No. Well, okay, if it is misinformation, it should be quite easy to show why and show how, right? And it's gotten to a point now where I think we have to do it. We have to do it. If only so that we can find a catharsis and find a way to, even if it is to say, agree to disagree, and then move forward. Because if we don't actually do it, then this festers. These sorts of things fester. And they find a way to express themselves in the society. and you want to expose this, expunge it, clean it up, and find a way to move forward. Okay, wait. How about this? Instead of letting the neolibs run the show, let the Joe Rogans have absolute command for a generation. Let's see what happens. You know what, Cotton Man? Can't be worse. Honestly. These neoliberals have fucked everything up so badly. Like, I don't know how the Joe Rogans of the world can make it worse. I can tell you what would happen if the Joe Rogans of the world took over. There'd be a lot of fitness programs. That's what would be going on. That physical education would become mandatory in all schools and universities and workplaces. There would be like a mandatory hour-long workout session every day that you would have to take or you wouldn't get paid. Everybody would be ripped and shredded, right? You'd constantly be eating like protein shakes and like lots of what, Alpha Brain or whatever it is. I don't know, dude. Everybody would look really hot, right? You know what? You've convinced me. Joe Rogan for world leader. Let's go. Joe Rogan for king. Joe Rogan for king. Have a good night, Johnny. Yeah, I mean, yeah, DMT consumption goes through the roof. Yeah, exactly. But I think, Cotton, this is my point, is that I think it's we can't it's not going to get better. It isn't. Like, it's no longer it isn't good enough to just be like, oh Christ, these conspiracy theorists. It's not good enough. Like, they have huge followings. They are organized. They are taking political power. There's a Kennedy running for president talking about it, for God's sakes. We have to talk about it. We have to. This idea that we can just shunt it into a corner, that's done. That's done. We have to talk about it. And the longer it doesn't get talked about, the longer there isn't a conversation, the more and more and more this divide gets worse and worse. That on the one side, it's they can't handle the truth, the deep state, these guys are fascists that are trying to impose their COVID fascism on us. And on the other side, these guys are conspiracy theorists, lunatics. They need to follow the rules like everybody else. We're doing this for public safety. All this. These two voices must get in the same room, and they must talk to one another. They must. It's a social imperative. And the longer it doesn't happen, the worse it gets. The worse it gets. That they have to talk to one another. And it should be... it should be someone like RFK, and it should be someone like a high-level doctor, right? Like, it should be these people. And the fact that it's happening on, like, Joe Rogan's podcast. What a fucking wild world we live in. Yeah, RFK could easily win the Democratic nomination, especially if the neolibs try and silence him, i.e. Trump. I mean, it's a little bit different on the Democratic side, because the Democratic side is under no circumstances a democratic system, right? That it's the superdelegates that choose. So there's like a small handful of superdelegates who are essentially like billionaire surrogates, and if they don't like you, you don't win. That's what happened to Bernie. That's what's going to happen to any candidate that goes up the ranks. So the Republicans don't do it that way, right? Have a good one, Tinker. The Republicans don't organize that way, right? The Republicans don't have a superdelegate system. That they are essentially populist from the bottom to the top. That Trump wins the nominee, and then that Trump could not be the Democratic nominee. That the reason why he goes through the Republican Party is because he can win the Republican nomination, right? Because you can win the Republican nomination just by getting enough votes. Because there's no superdelegate system in the Republican Party. There is a superdelegate system in the Democratic Party that existed ever since FDR left office because they didn't ever want to see another FDR, right? And so they put in the superdelegate system in order to purge people out, which they've done and they continue to do. And I think RFK would meet that fate. I don't think they would ever let RFK in, and no matter how much support he had, because the Democratic Party is under no circumstances a Democratic Party. It's like one of those like George Orwell things, right? It's the doublespeak. The Democratic Party is undemocratic. That's wild. Let's go Skynet. Yeah, let's go Skynet. All right, guys, I'm going to end a little bit early today. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum... Matthias, you hooked me. Did you see the BlackRock expose undercover journalism? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've seen a bit of that. There's a guy I follow on TikTok. His entire channel is about BlackRock. And it's about exposing BlackRock, and it's about exposing how much they own. It's about talking about BlackRock. He needs to read more Marx, because I think he is sort of believing that BlackRock is talking about crypto and getting rid of the banking system and all this kind of stuff, and he sees that as a good. And I'm just like, bro, you got to read some Marx, man. Like, it's not about the bank. It's about who owns the assets. Anyway, always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.